existence of a planet beyond Neptune was proposed by an astronomer named Percival Lowell. Some math combined with wobbles in the orbits of the outer planets got him close to finding this body, but 10 years into his search, Lowell died. 16 years later, another astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh picked the work back up. He used Lowell's math, only now he had the benefit of advances in photographic technology. And so, in February of 1930, he was able to find mysterious Planet X. Because it sits in the coldest, darkest outpost of the solar system, so far away that from the surface, our sun looks like any other star, it was named Pluto, after the god of the deep, dark underworld. There are two different glyphs. This is the one I use. It's a merging of the letters P and L, which is a tip of the hat to Percival Lowell. The other one is this. It's the cross of matter piercing a chalice. Hovering over that chalice is a circle that stands for the eternal spirit. I think it's safe to say that Pluto is the planet we know the least about. Partly that's because we've known about it for the least amount of time. It was discovered less than 100 years ago, and since it takes 248 years to complete its trek, it has not yet even made one full revolution around the zodiac since it entered human consciousness. Pluto is about the unseen, the unconscious, the survival instinct, destruction, power, and transformation. I think in the case of Pluto, we should start with its myth. Pluto's job as god of the underworld is to dispense justice to the souls of the dead. And he performs this task with an iron fist. The souls get what they earned in their human existence. After many years in the darkness, however, Pluto's lonely. One day, gazing over the topside world through his periscope, he sees a maiden skipping through the field. It's Persephone, goddess of springtime. Persephone's giddy because she's never known anything but sunlight, and her only job is to name flowers. Gloomy-eyed Pluto falls in love instantly with his opposite, but he doesn't have a silver tongue with which to woo her, and so instead he creates a new flower and pushes it up through the earth. It's in bloom with glittering, flowing yellow petals. As Persephone stands over it, she doesn't notice that her feet are on either side of a fissure in the earth. And when she touches its stem, the ground begins to vibrate. Then it cracks open, and out of a chasm deeper than anything she has ever known comes Pluto, Lord of Darkness. He grabs Persephone and subducts her into the underworld. She hates it down there. She won't sleep, she won't eat, she won't make love. Pluto tries. He creates a shade garden for her to play in. It's full of succulents and coral bells, but she doesn't respond. Persephone is standing in one spot staring into space when a little goddess appears. Her name is Balbo. Now, the thing about Balbo is that she's mainly a torso. She sees through her nipples and she speaks through her vulva. Her job is to tell jokes to the goddesses when they're depressed. And these jokes are not for mixed company. When Balbo breaks into song and dance and begins telling bawdy tales, Persephone cracks a smile. While she's distracted and her mouth is hanging partway open, a troll sneaks up beside her and slips 6 seeds of a pomegranate into her mouth. She swallows them before she knows it. Meanwhile, in the topside world, Persephone's mother, Demeter, goddess of the grain, is searching everywhere for her, but to no avail. The problem here is that Demeter is responsible for crops, and crops grow only when she's content. As she searches the world, as she worries for her daughter, the crops begin to die. She doesn't care. She roams the land crying, wailing, grieving for her beloved child. Jupiter, king of the gods, starts hearing from the people. They have no grain, so they have no bread, and the livestock are dying of starvation. They come to the foot of Mount Olympus and threaten not to worship him anymore if he doesn't do something about this. Jupiter is feeling the pressure. He knows that Persephone is in the underworld, yet he usually stays out of Pluto's business. As he considers the situation, Demeter collapses in despair at the edge of a stream. As she lays there, the flowing water whispers to her, "Persephone was taken by Pluto." Well, there are only 2 gods who can go into the underworld and come back out again, and Demeter is not one of them. So she goes to Jupiter and demands an intervention. Now Jupiter has come up with a deal. If Persephone has eaten anything while under the earth, she must stay there. If she hasn't, she's free to come up and be reunited with her mother for all time. When he finds that she was tricked into eating 6 seeds, he declares that an equitable solution is for Persephone to spend half the year in the underworld and half the year with her mother in the topside world. Persephone accepts her fate. Because she sees sunlight half the time, she takes her role as Queen of the Dead. She sits in her cast iron throne and rules alongside her husband. She's sometimes seen standing at the entrance of the underworld with an urn in her arm. This urn is full of grain that beams out sunlight. As the boat driver floats down the river Styx with new arrivals, she bends down and places a piece of grain in each of their mouths to ease the transition that she found so difficult. This myth doesn't represent every facet of Pluto in the astrological chart, but it does show the core. It reflects the fact that this planet brings us dark experiences, natally and when triggered by transit. The part of us that's innocent, young, naive, and not cut out for darkness goes into the underworld. In life, underworld experiences involve things like trauma, significant betrayal, loss, grief, and death. An underworld experience is something where you're overpowered and overwhelmed. That could be by another person, by an event, by fate, or even by the consequences of your own actions. We know this last one from a detail in the myth. Persephone is taken easily by Pluto because she's drawn to the superficial beauty of a glittering flower. The presence of this flower in the middle of a field would probably have made a season-old crone suspicious, but a youthful maiden goes right over to it. This says that when people follow glitz and glitter, they can end up standing over a crack in the earth and they don't even know it. In this same way, astrological Pluto brings those experiences that cause you to fall away from the superficial and into the depths of life. Usually, Pluto does this by bringing in some sort of trauma that reorders a native's priorities. Now let's go to the center of the story. Persephone's immediate response to being in Pluto's chasm is to numb out. But then she hears some jokes. They come from Babo, so we know the jokes are racy rather than cruel. Cracking a smile over something outrageous in the worst of times takes soul. It is that moment of openness that causes Persephone's fate to change. What can we extract here? When you're enveloped by hard times, you can fall into depression, or you can feel more alive because death and darkness surround you. That's how you begin to show mastery and take the throne regardless of what you face. Is it possible to have an intensely dark experience and learn nothing? Absolutely. That's Demeter. She represents the part of us that would rather be up on the surface all the time and wants to put a stop to deepening or darkening events. In fact, she fights for it to the point of collapse. This part of the ego works and works to keep us topside, even though that means a more superficial life. Pluto wants you to have a deeper look at the unconscious, the unseen, the unpleasant things that have been cleaved off and left to grow in the shadows. This is an uncomfortable prospect, granted. I've never heard anyone say, I want the person I trust the most to betray me. I want to be left with nothing. I want my child to go missing. Pluto is feared because he brings painful and devastating events. However, resistance is futile. Try as you might, the earth opens and up comes the Lord of the underworld. This happens more or less often depending upon the chart. Some natives are known as Plutonic. Plutonic people have a prominent Pluto. That's Pluto at an angle, or Pluto touching the sun and moon. Plutonic people can also be those with a loaded eighth, Pluto's house, or a lot of Scorpio, Pluto's sign. In some charts, all of this is present. If you're Plutonic, you no doubt resonate with this myth, and you have some respect for the destruction Pluto brings because it can lead to empowerment. So, does this dark planet have a dark side? Well, we've got the drive to win, we've got excessive pride, and we've got the revenge impulse. But Pluto's dark side mostly involves the misuse of power. The placement of Pluto tends to manifest as power trips. These come out most in the matters associated with Pluto's house placement. Where Pluto is placed, we expect betrayals. We also tend to give away our power, sometimes on a silver platter with a thank you note, and then lament our powerlessness. One of the tasks of Pluto is to become aware of how you navigate and even create repeated experiences in which your power is stolen or given away. When we take a look at the family of origin, we see something interesting. We find that in childhood, a lot of pressure and conflict surrounded the issues associated with Pluto's house placement. What kind of effect does that end up having in adulthood? These natives continue to see the issues of that house through the lens of life and death. At the extremes, you may run into very self-destructive behavior and even the death wish. But once you gain control of Pluto, once you shine some light on that tangle of darkness, a lifetime of transformation can occur. Transformation is the change that really matters. It's a rebirth that leaves a dead skin on the ground. Pluto plays out according to its sign, its house, and the planets it touches. This is how we're able to receive a personal experience of Pluto. However, as an outer planet, there is another expression beyond the individual birth chart. This one is found in the collective unconscious, the part of the psyche shared by everyone. In Western astrology, millions and millions of people are born with the same Pluto placement. This placement of Pluto in a sign of the zodiac is what gives each generation its own attitudes, its own values, and its own interpretation of events. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, the Meaning of Pluto. Stay tuned for all the ways you can get in touch for a birth chart reading and full astrological services. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Joy. More videos to come.